was a year ago that Georgia has no chance to win a national title. That is a bold statement, but is he right? Welcome to the Nitro College Football Show. I'm Burl.
I'm Street.
And before we dig into this big, Gunner versus Pollack debate, we do want to touch on a few things about what Kirby Smart actually said this week at the press conference. We're also going to dive into what we're hearing from week 2 of Georgia spring practice, and we've got some stuff on the latest on Trinidad, Chambliss, and some other goings-ons in college football. So, as we go through this, if we want to know what you fans think, so let us know in the comments, let us know in the chat, and let's dive right in. So, press conference was this week. Kirby had a lot to say. What were some of the highlights?
Yeah, I mean, it was really an open question and answer session, right? He didn't really have a big opening statement like he sometimes has, during the season game weeks. He kind of just took questions from the various beat writers, and you heard all the, the typical names there, your Brooks Austin, your Rusty Mansell, all those guys ask questions. And so he kind of just fielded the questions and gave answers in typical Kirby fashion, didn't give too much, didn't really go too deep. If he didn't like a question, he kind of gave it the old Kirby, non-answer. But I mean, lots of stuff he touched on were just things that were going on in practice, updates on players, young players, new guys, and how things were going. So first thing he touched on, first kind of question, of course, that everybody's asking about is Gunner. He said Gunner is doing okay. He's getting back in there, recovering from this injury that he had. He had a knee injury that he suffered in an offseason workout. So he's getting back in there, but it's given opportunity for, some of the other quarterbacks to kind of get reps, which I think is a good thing. But he's getting back to full strength.
Yeah. So what did he injure?
His knee.
His knee? Okay.
Yeah. If you notice, though, they said it was left knee, though. If you notice, Georgia did put out a little funny practice video on Saturday. It was Minecraft themed. I don't know if your kids play Minecraft, but mine
was actually pretty good.
But if you notice, one of the plays was Gunner throwing a pass, and it didn't look like his knee was wrapped in that. And they had people who had been to practice, I guess, earlier in the week had said that he had that knee kind of wrapped up. So I think that looked like a good sign. It didn't look like he had anything on his left knee. So that's always a good sign that he's getting back in there, and nothing serious. I think they said that they checked it out. Some other reporters had talked about that they checked it out, and there's no structural damage or anything. So,
yeah, and I think someone brought up a question about the viral clip from Kirby talking about Elias Williams.
Yeah. So Kirby actually addressed that. He said that on that play, that Amaris Williams actually slipped on somebody's foot, and that's why he got blew up. But it was funny because it was very loud. And of course, Kirby and his, we didn't put that out. One of you guys reported it and put that out and made a big deal out of it. But it's just funny. People talk about that. Actually, I was listening to Drew Butler and Jake Fromm's podcast today. They had David Green on there, and they were talking about, Fromm was talking about how it was playing under Kirby, and Green was talking about how it was playing under Rick. And, Green said Rick didn't have a microphone like that. He didn't have to get yelled at in practice. And Jake Fromm was like, oh, I enrolled early and I came early to get yelled at by Kirby all the time. So, but yeah, I mean, from that, what can you tell? Well, everything we've heard about Elias Williams this spring is that his blocking is getting better, that he's put on muscle, and he blows somebody up. So it's a good sign, and it's a little welcome to Georgia moment for Amaris Williams, who, as somebody said, maybe the practices weren't as hard under Gus last year at Auburn.
Yeah,
or not Gus, but I mean,
Gus.
What's his name? Not Gus. Why did I say Gus?
Hugh Freeze.
Jeez. I know why I said Gus, because Gus, if you hadn't heard the news, Gus Malzahn was named to the College Football Playoff Committee this week. That's why I had Gus Malzahn on my brain.
Yep.
But
and
yeah,
he's gonna defeat Alabama again
every year. Alabama better not be on the tipping point, or he's just going to have to excuse himself from the vote every year. He's the only coach. He's the only coach who figured out how to be successful against Alabama when Saban was there, at least part of the time.
True. Someone told me today, speaking of Alabama and Saban, someone said that every year that Tiger Woods got in a traffic accident, Alabama won a national title.
You heard it here first. Alabama national champion 2026. It's coming.
It's happening.
Yeah,
it's been written. But that's awesome news to hear about Elias Williams, because we need a breakout offensive star on offense, because we really haven't had it in a while. Last year you had Branch, he had a really great year, but we still haven't had. No one's going to be Brock Bowers, but someone with that close to that type of production.
Yeah. Well, Kirby somebody did ask him a question about what does Elias Williams need to do to kind of carve out more playing time this year. And I thought this was an interesting answer, because he said that he needs to use his size and quickness to become more twitchy. He's tall and big, and he can go on the outside. They used him a little bit on the outside this year. But Kirby said that for Elias Williams to really get more playing time, he needs to develop as a weapon inside. Use his ability to roll his hips and get open inside over the middle would actually help. So I found that interesting, because that's not where they used him last year. He wasn't used a lot in the pass game. When he was, it was mostly on the outside. So
yeah, a lot of wheel routes.
Right. So Kirby said, he needs to develop inside and, be more of a true inline tight end who takes those passes over the middle and gets down the field.
Yeah. So Kirby also talked a little bit about Elijah Griffin.
Yeah. He said, he talked about his twitchiness and his ability to disrupt people. Very strong for his size and age. And the key question Kirby said is, we ask guys when they're developing, are you hard to block? And that was the question they said that they talked to Elijah Griffin. Are you hard to block? And what they want from him is they want him to be unblockable.
Yeah. They want a Jalen Carter.
Right.
Which who
everybody wants a Jalen Carter. And this is a guy, 5-star, came on last year. We talked about it a couple weeks ago that there is a hole there in the pass rush. It's time for some guys to step up. He only had 1 sack last year. So there's an obvious answer there that he could get more sacks this year. That would help out. But, at that position, sacks aren't important. It's more the disruptor. And that's what's important in the Georgia defensive line. So.
Yep, absolutely. Any other thoughts on, or any other news from Kirby?
Yeah, like I said, there was a lot of questions. One of the things he talked a little bit about the offensive line. There were quite a few questions on the offensive line. Kirby said that, they've got guys healthy and they've got deep in the offensive line this year, which has allowed them to actually run 3 full groups on the offensive line. 15 guys rotating, lots of reps, moving guys around, getting guys into different position. And one of the guys that they've talked a lot about that gets questioned is Jaw Jackson. Obviously, a guy who is 6'10", who didn't really play high school football. It was seen as a project, but there's been a lot of buzz around camp about Jaw Jackson. And, I think going into the year, I didn't think that Jaw Jackson was a candidate to be a starter, but from everything that they're talking about, he's been getting times with the ones at right tackle, and they've been kicking Juan Gaston inside, because I thought for sure Juan Gaston was going to be out there, but it sounds like Jaw Jackson is getting a lot of time now. They're moving guys around too, so that's an interesting one. Another person
that makes the offensive line massive. Just absolutely massive between him and who did you just
Glover?
say? Oh,
Glover and Gaston.
Yeah, Glover, Gaston. Just massive people.
Yeah. Another guy that they directly asked him about on the offensive line is freshman Zakai Helton. And yes, Kirby pointed out that it is pronounced Zakai, not Zyke, which is what a lot of people said. This is a kid, and I guess they mentioned this here. He'd lost a lot of weight when he was in high school, and I guess he has Crohn's disease. So that was the reason he lost a lot of weight, but they've got that better under control, and he's putting back on weight. They said that he's just a high character, tough worker. It was really impressive as a freshman. And you've heard that from a lot of people. A lot of the beat writers and a lot of people have been talking about him. And, Georgia got those contributions last year from Gaston and Glover, who played great. And the ability to have freshmen who can step in their first year on campus and contribute is huge, because you get these guys back and you can grow with them. I mean, how much was it of a luxury this year to know that the fight they're losing 2 offensive linemen to the NFL? You've got 2 guys who were freshmen last year who started games and played well, and now they're there to anchor the line along with a couple of seniors. You've got so much experience; it's huge.
One thing that Nick Saban was the master at was adapting to the times, right? Like, until NIL hit and he said, "Screw it, I'm done." But Kirby, I think he's the next one that's rolling with that, because I feel like he's really adapted to the NIL anytime transfer world that we live in. Because you look at last year and the year before, what was the thing that Kirby was always complaining about? Lack of depth.
Right.
You don't have the depth anymore because you can't stack guys. So he's kind of flipped that on its head right now, because, I mean, you got all these guys coming back from the previous year that you saw just continue to grow throughout the year. And now you're continuing to add depth, add talent from, your recruiting and in the portal.
Right.
And this might be one of the most talented teams since those national championship teams.
Yeah. I one of the things that came out last week was returning production, right? This is one of the most experienced team that Kirby's had since 2017, 2018. Very experienced. I think Georgia's 8th in the country in overall returning production, which is huge, because last year it was not the case. And even in 2021, I noticed that even 2021, when we had that great amount of talent, it wasn't a lot of returning production, but we have a lot coming back. I mean, you think about it this way, outside of Zach Branch, statistically, what did Georgia lose? You lost CJ Allen and Zach Branch, but you didn't lose a ton.
No, not at all.
So you got a lot of guys back with experience, and I think that's huge. Yeah, I mean, Kirby touched on a lot of stuff. We're going to talk some more, I guess, in later segments here. But I guess one thing that he did talk about that I will say is interesting is talking about the running backs. There was some questions there, different things about the running backs. What is the expectation for growth for Chauncey Bowens and Nate Frazier? And Kirby said, look, it's leadership, right? It's leadership and experience. These guys are juniors now. But the real interesting thing when they were talking about the running backs in general is that it seems like Kirby does not feel comfortable right now with the running backs' ability to play on third down and catch passes. Last year, we saw Cash Jones be the third down back.
That's
all
true.
The time.
Yeah.
You didn't see these guys get a lot of targets, and Kirby made mention of it a few times. So to me, that really stuck out in my mind, is that he doesn't feel comfortable with these guys in the pass game. He loves them as runners. Clearly, they got a lot of runs last year. And, Frazier looked great down the stretch. Bowens, when he wasn't hurt, looked great. But you got to find that third down guy. So there's an opportunity there for one of these guys.
You look back at the great backs that Georgia's had. I mean, even when you had Sony and Chubb, Sony was amazing on third down.
Right.
I mean, absolutely.
And you had Swift. You had Swift on that team too, who could catch passes.
James Cook. I mean, he's probably the best one out of the bunch. Yeah.
Or Kenny McIntosh. Kenny McIntosh is the best.
Yeah, actually, Kenny McIntosh was
the best receiving back. But look at even that. That year we won the national championship. Kenny McIntosh received passes, and he could run it too. But then you had Kendall Milton. You had Dejon Edwards to kind of counter that. So Kirby likes to have that guy that's his dependable third down back. And it seems like right now that that's a little bit of a hole.
He's not
there.
really sure who that is. Yeah.
He's not comfortable with it, or else he wouldn't have mentioned it a few times. So yeah, a couple other things that not particular to players. So he was asked about the impact of Coach Knight taking over. You know, he kind of stressed that it's still early, that they're still filling each other out, that the players are still getting used to him. But Kirby said that he is very technical. He's one of those guys that likes to throw on the cleats, get out there and run around with the guys, be involved, which is good. So the hope is that, you know, outside linebackers, edge guys, we need to turn up their pass rush. And so hopefully that's something that comes there. He talked about Robert Edwards joining staff, which is interesting. You know, Kirby said he's got a ton of respect for him. And he, you know, it helps players understand that you were only one play away from the end of your career because of what happened to Robert Edwards, but also that he fought to get back. You know, he had that injury after his first year in the NFL, but he did come back. Now his career never ended up being what it should have been, but Kirby said that's a good lesson for the players, you know, from there. But yeah, there's some other stuff, and I think we can talk a little bit later about specific positions, but that was some of the high level stuff. Obviously, G-Day is coming up in a couple weeks, so everybody's getting ready for that. He was asked about Dante Dowdell, and I will say that Kirby's comments seemed maybe a little bit not impressed, almost. He said that that he's hoping to get them out there running back. He said they're hoping to use him on special teams, but that he's a guy who's a little bit older and he's very physical, but he's been in and out. So I just kind of took it as he didn't seem like he was there yet. Didn't mean a bad thing. And he didn't directly say that. So this is just my opinion.
Yeah. Well, also, I mean, it's his second week of practice.
Right.
With the team.
Right.
So he's still got a long way to go. He's probably still learning the playbook and just getting used to the culture at Georgia. Cause I mean, he's been at 3 other schools.
Right. Right. He's been a lot of places. So, yeah. So, I mean, like I said, those are just kind of some of the takeaways I had. Typical Kirby speak, but looking forward to more of the season. So.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, everybody watching, you know, let us know what your biggest takeaways are from, you know, what Kirby had to say this week. Drop it in the comments. Let us know in chat. We'll answer questions later on in the show. But honestly, I mean, if Kirby's comments told us a lot about Georgia, you know, you're still searching for some answers offensively, and there's some big questions on the team. The biggest one that has come up is at quarterback. This past week, David Pollack pretty much called out Gunner Stockton, saying, you know, if he plays the same as he did last year, Georgia has no chance of winning a national championship.
Yeah. It's an interesting comment, right? It was on Aaron Murray had him on his show. So you've got 2 Georgia guys who have both worked in national media, you know, and sometimes people have had their opinions on Pollack that he sometimes tries to be a little bit anti-Georgia, but I don't think he was in this case at all.
Pollack's never going to be anti-Georgia.
Right. I mean,
crazy.
People joke about it. But his direct quote was that if Gunner Stockton is the same quarterback he was a year ago, that Georgia has no chance to win a natty. That is the direct quote that he said. And, you know, I look at that and I don't know if that's the case. I just don't know if I agree with that. You know, it's a very bold statement. And
it is. I can see both sides of the coin here. On one side, you know, to kind of go against what Pollack is saying, you look at Gunner's numbers last year. They are outstanding.
Right.
I mean, they're really, really solid numbers. And if you would ask anybody before the season last year, if Gunner threw up those types of numbers, would you be really excited about this team? You'd be hell yeah.
Right.
And
so when Pollack started talking, right after he said that, he said, you know, I saw growth out of him in spurts last season, that there was positives, things he was doing better, getting more touch on the ball, changing arm angles. He has a strong arm and things like that. But then he backed it up. He said that it's really his issue with Gunner is it's personality driven. And this was another quote he said. He said, he's a kid who doesn't want to mess up. I don't know if I agree with that either.
No, so that part I 100% agree with.
You do?
Yeah, absolutely. Because he showed a lot of hesitancy last year to go deep. And I mean, Kirby even called him out in the middle of the season, saying like, just let it rip, have it. He threw an interception and Kirby was like actually clapping about it because he.
But do you think it was because he didn't want to screw up?
Yes.
Or because I always felt like maybe it was just he was a little bit too quick to run. Like it wasn't about screwing up. He was just nervous to make the throw. So if it wasn't there, he would tuck and run, or he didn't. He got so comfortable with Branch that he took the easy throws. He liked the easy throws, but downfield, he didn't feel comfortable with the receivers. I didn't take it as he wasn't trying to screw up.
But no, I totally think he was playing kind of timid because he, especially at the end of the season, he started just holding on to the ball for way too long. And, everybody thought, oh, he's getting harassed back there, but no, he's just not getting the ball out of his hands.
But do you think late in the season, and I'm going to pose this, do you think it was not having Drew Bobo out there that caused a lot of that?
Absolutely. I think that definitely was a huge factor. I mean, because Drew Bobo was directing that offensive line, and when he came out, I mean, there was a noticeable difference in the O-line play for a game or two.
Right. So, the interesting thing is Gunner early in the year, and Pollack was right on this. Early in the year last year, Gunner did kind of look hesitant to throw the ball. That you saw it in those first couple of games against Marshall and against Austin P. Like he was very quick to run and he looked great doing it, but you were kind of like, whatever. But then he had that Tennessee game where he had to throw the ball and he made throws. And then you had the Ole Miss game where he had to play perfect. And it was all coming together and his confidence was building. And he had the great game against Texas where, yes, he had a great game against Texas, but the play calling, if you remember that, there was only one throw that was like 20 yards downfield the whole game, and that was to a tight end. So he didn't throw it down. And then those last three games of the year.
And his big play in that game was a rushing touchdown.
Right. And then you got to those last three games and he looked hesitant. And granted, at the end of the fourth quarter of the Ole Miss game, the fire was lit and he was back. And he made some great plays in that second Ole Miss game too.
So that's what really stood out to me was when the pressure was on and he was forced into just doing and not thinking, he played great. Because he made one of the most an amazing throw at the end of that Ole Miss game that got Georgia into the goal line area where he just dropped a dime between the safety and the linebacker. I mean, it was perfect. So he has it in him. We've seen it tons of times. He had the Tennessee throw. First game against Texas coming in the SEC championship game, throwing a dart to Lawson Lucky. But it does make sense that, he would be that hesitant player, because I think about the quote that Lawson Lucky said as Gunner was going into that SEC championship game against Texas, that if you believed in yourself as much as we do, you'll be fine.
Right.
And I didn't think much of it at the time, but like looking back and then watching the season, how it progressed, it's like, dude needs to get a little more confidence.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess the thing is we know Gunner has areas to improve. He needs to push the ball down the field more. He needs to not take all the hits he took last year. I mean, the second Ole Miss game, he took that big hit, which was a great play, but he looked a little bit out of it. Was he concussed? I don't know. But at some point, if he gets more confidence with not being so quick to run and stops taking some of those huge hits, that might help. Obviously, he's got a banged up knee this spring, so you don't want to have that. But he really needs to, like you said, maybe don't be afraid to throw those incomplete passes. And he needs to trust his weapons. He needs to use his deep tight end room really well. So if he does
Absolutely.
those things, and improves, absolutely Georgia has a national title, has national title aspirations and hopes. But the question goes back to his numbers were great last year. Georgia probably doesn't win a couple of those games without the plays that he made. Obviously, the Tennessee game, he made great plays. He was perfect in that Ole Miss game.
The Ole Miss game was amazing.
The first one. But so the question becomes, if Gunner was the exact same as last year, 34 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 3,400 yards total, does Georgia not stand a chance as a national title contender when last year, as a less experienced team with solid numbers in games that he helped them win, that they went to the playoffs, they won the SEC, they had a bye, and they just ran into Trinidad Chambliss on God mode? I don't know if I buy that. I don't know if Gunner has to be better for them to win. If they get the exact same play out of Gunner as last year, absolutely, I think they could win a national championship.
I think Gunner's play is definitely good enough to win a national championship. The area that the offense has to improve on for Georgia to win a national championship is explosive plays. Georgia didn't really have that last year. Branch had awesome plays getting out of long third downs to get first downs, but just like the bombs, we didn't have tons of long running plays, anything like that. So if my quarterback is going to throw for 30 or 3,000 yards and 35 touchdowns and all that good stuff, that's going to get you in the conversation. But you got to have the other pieces step up to take it to the next level. And that's what those national championship teams had, because Stetson Bennett was great, but you had Brock Bowers, George Pickens. I mean, all these guys that could take it to the house, Ladd McConkey at any moment of the game.
Right. So, I mean, I think my conclusion here is if you got the same Gunner Stockton as this year, Georgia absolutely does have a chance to win a national championship. But if you're watching this show and you don't believe me because I'm just some schlub off the street who's doing this for fun, who makes mistakes sometimes, I posed this question yesterday on Twitter because there was a call for open questions on Josh Pate's show. And lo and behold, Josh Pate picked my question. And it was this exact question that David Pollack had said Georgia has no chance to win a national championship if they don't get improved play from Gunner Stockton. And I just simply asked, agree or disagree? And what Pate said is kind of in line with what I think. So he said that no, Gunner doesn't necessarily have to be better. But he said that if he's not better, the margin of error is super thin. Because look what happened last year. Georgia got outplayed by a quarterback who was playing better. And they lost by, 5 points, but really 3 points because they couldn't stop after tying a game in the fourth quarter. So that's what Pate said. Pate said all these things. Go ahead.
And I think that backs up what I was saying. Like, Gunner can play just as well as he did last year. But if someone else on that offense doesn't step up and become a home run hitter, I don't see Georgia winning a national championship that way.
Or it's like he said, or the margins of error on the other side of the ball are smaller. The defense can't make mistakes. Because one little mistake, a third down pass when you should have been covering a guy deep after you failed to pick off a pass the play before that leads to an easy field goal. And you lose a game by 5 points, but 3 points.
True. True. But I mean, that's football. All the margins are razor thin, especially in the SEC. It's the most parity conference in college football.
Right.
Georgia could have lost several games last year.
Right.
But they didn't because of the culture at Georgia and, the lessons that Kirby drives on those guys.
Yeah.
But they could have easily lost a few of those games because those margins are so razor thin.
Right. So, like I said, that's my opinion. You don't like mine, you can check out Josh Pates on his show. But that's kind of what we've got with Gunner. We know what Gunner is. We know where Gunner needs to get better. Now, the interesting thing this springtime, with Gunner being a little bit hobbled, it's opened up some opportunities for some guys that have not gotten as much run with the ones to get some playing time. So Kirby did, he got some questions about the quarterback position. He said that, it's been great to get guys reps, just getting guys reps in there. They've been doing a lot of extra 7-on-7 time, and it's allowing all the quarterbacks to get reps. Some of the buzz coming out of spring practice. Obviously, we know about Ryan Puglisi, that he is entrenched pretty heavily there at the number 2 spot right now. But beyond that, we don't know a lot about the guys, right? And for Puglisi's sake, people are saying that he seems a lot more comfortable in the offense this year, that whereas last year he was, a little bit hesitant, he's really taking ownership, which comes with being your third year in the program, right?
Yeah, reps do amazing things.
So after Puglisi, starting to hear some buzz on 2 guys that were freshmen last year. And, Ryan Montgomery is the first one. Ryan Montgomery was a highly recruited quarterback out of the state of Ohio, but he got hurt his senior year of high school. And so last year was a little slow step back. He was coming off a major knee injury, so he was in a brace. But they say, this spring he's full go. And I've seen some comparisons online. Some people are comparing him to Jake Fromm. And for being young in your career, that's very good, because Jake Fromm was a leader. He had his limitations in terms of passing, but he was definitely a guy that everybody bought in on and trusted. But I don't know. I haven't seen enough out of him to know really what he is. But the one thing that I did see is that people have said that out of the 7 or 8 practices that they've had so far, Ryan Montgomery has not had a bad day of practice yet.
Yeah, quote from Jay Crow at Dogs HQ. He has not had a subpar practice yet. I mean, that's pretty awesome. That's great. That's great to hear.
Yeah. After him, another guy, a local guy who was on the team last year, Hezekiah Millender. We got to see him a little bit in G-Day last year, and I must admit that he looked uncomfortable. Now, granted, he was a true freshman who had been on campus for a month, and I think it was more of a running quarterback in high school, seemed a little bit of a project. People are saying that he's turning heads this spring as well. You got to love the physicality and the size. The guy is 6'3", 225, fast, and super strong arm. So it's kind of a forgotten guy in the room, right? Everybody's talked about Puglisi Montgomery. He's kind of I think he was just a 3-star. Yeah, he's from the Athens area, Cedar Shoals, I think, or Clark Central, one of the two. But interesting to watch.
Yeah, I mean, he fits that 4th quarterback position that Kirby likes to keep on. I mean, hopefully we don't get in a situation where he's the only guy left.
Yeah.
You never want to see that, because then, all hell would have literally broken loose at that point, and we're probably having a terrible season. So don't want that. But it is, I think it's kind of a like good news, bad news situation, because it's good that Puglisi and Montgomery are getting these extra reps during spring. And it sucks that Gunner's hurt, but it's good to get those reps for those guys, because Georgia has not been blowing out people that much. And so they haven't really been getting in-game experience.
Right. Well, and it sucks that Gunner's hurt, but he's a 5th-year senior in this program who started all year last year. This is not last spring, where even though he was presumed the starter, it wasn't guaranteed last spring. This year, everybody knows he's the starter. He's got a year starting under the belt. He won an SEC championship. He lost a playoff game, but he went 12-1 before that. So there's very little doubt in his job there. But yeah, it's important, and it's great for these other guys to get work. It'll be interesting to see when G-Day gets here how much Gunner plays. I know obviously they said he's getting better, but if he's coming off injury, don't risk it too much, Kirby. And I don't think he will.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know how much stock I put into, he's doing so much better. If he's hurt, he's not getting a lot of reps, presumably, right?
Yeah.
Because like we just said, Puglisi and Montgomery are getting the reps. So
we don't know when this injury happened either. They said it was off season. It might have been the week before practice started. It could have been a month before. Who knows?
Yeah. But even though he's been around forever, it still kind of sucks he's not getting those extra reps because every rep matters.
Right. Just to mention, there is one other quarterback in the room, and that is transfer Bryson Beaver, who is technically a transfer, but really is just part of he's a freshman. He's a true freshman. He was a class of 2026 kid. He enrolled at Oregon and then transferred after I guess he was there for their bowl practices or whatever. And then he transferred because Dante Williams was coming back, and among other things, they had guys there. So we'll see how his progression comes in a few years, especially with Georgia's after some high profile quarterbacks, both in this class, and they've got Jaden Wade committed in the class after that. Though we'll see how that goes. The quarterback recruiting, man, is just like
it's crapshoot.
It's a crapshoot, and guys aren't going to stay if they're 5-star players and they're not starting their freshman year. Are they going to even stick around? Some will, but it's going to be fewer and fewer every year. So.
I feel like the top tier 5-star recruits are super risky, and I don't even know if they're necessarily all that worth it, because the ones that we've seen, primarily at quarterback, they don't stay at the same school.
Right.
It's mind-boggling.
I mean, look at the guys in the playoffs last year. How many of the quarterbacks in the playoffs last year were from the schools that they started at? It was very, very few.
Gunnar and Ty Simpson.
Yeah. And yeah. So maybe the kids at James Madison.
Yeah, especially the ones at Tulane.
Right. But that's the day and age we're in. So anyway, so that's kind of what's going on with the quarterback room. I think it's important for Gunner to continue to develop. I think it's important for these guys to get playing time, and we'll go from there.
Absolutely. So right now, if you're watching, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. We love talking college football. We're here every week talking college football, but let us know what you think. Are you buying Gunner as Georgia's championship quarterback, or is there something more that you need to see? Let us know your take. Let us know in chat. Let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. Okay. Do you just want to jump to the national stuff?
There's a couple more things we should hit on from spring practice.
Okay.
A couple points, some news that's going around on some things. So one of the things I think it's important to talk about is the battle at safety and star. So everybody knows that Georgia's got KJ Bolden entrenched at safety at one side, but who we have playing at the opposite and who we have playing at star is kind of up in the air. Now, lots of people kind of consider what happened at the end of last year. Rashawn Jenkins is going to be our star. That's what he was kind of at the end of the year last year, and they figured that the other safety position is going to be open. But Georgia did bring in 2 transfers in that cornerback room to come in and compete. They brought in 3. The kid from USC, I haven't heard anything about him, so I'm not really sure where he stands right now. But they brought in 2 experienced guys, and Khalil Barnes from Clemson and Gentry Williams from Oklahoma. Now, Khalil Barnes is an interesting case. This is a guy who was a freshman All-American at Clemson, was a really, really good player there his first year and his sophomore year too. He was a good, solid player there his first 2 years, had 7 interceptions over his first 2 years there. But the problem is that last year they had a new defensive coordinator and he kind of switched positions. He had been playing more in kind of a star role and they moved him over kind of to safety last year. And he really had a down year. He didn't have any interceptions. He had less tackles. People were really kind of down on him. So he's coming to Georgia, but from everything that, we're seeing about him, it seems like he's fitting in pretty well. And the interesting thing is that he is reportedly getting a lot of run at star. And that maybe, the thinking was that he was going to compete for that other safety position, but maybe Dinkins slides over into that safety position and he plays star, because that early in his career at Clemson was more where he found success.
What a luxury.
Yeah.
I mean, just to be able to move those guys around, because you're going to need that depth and have people able to play both of those positions. It kind of reminds me of Javon Bullard and Tyke Smith. Type situation.
And so the good thing there is that Rusty Mansell that said that people are comparing him to Chris Smith, which we know Chris Smith was the perfect opposite guy when we had Starks. You had Malachi Starks on one side. Chris Smith was the perfect guy to be opposite. So if KJ Bolden is your dynamic playmaker, like Malachi Starks was, what a luxury it would be to have a guy on the other side who complements him well, who is physical, who can hit. That would be great. Obviously, the other guy I talked about was Gentry Williams coming over from Oklahoma. This is a guy who I think was a very highly recruited guy when he got to Oklahoma, but he's never been able to stay healthy. He's just missed a ton of games through his career. It'd be great for him to step up. Now, there is a name that we're not getting to see out there right now. That's Jamar Lee Riddle, the transfer from East Carolina. Lots of people have really liked what they saw to him, but he's got an injury right now that he happened at the end of the year last year. So he's pretty much totally out of spring right now, not really doing anything. So it's hard to kind of figure out where he fits in, but he is obviously, another candidate there at safety as well. So it's interesting. Like I said, the secondary is an interesting spot. You've got KJ Bolden there. You've got Ellis Robinson. And then after that, you've got some guys who got some run last year, and it'll be interesting for Georgia. But you could tell that Kirby didn't feel good about his depth when he went out and brought in essentially 4 guys who could play safety in the transfer portal.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just look at what happened last year. I mean, you had guys dropping like flies in the secondary.
Right. Aguero was in and out of there, and Kyron Jones, and yeah. So
yeah, it was getting pretty thin there at the end.
And then they kept getting kicked out for targeting too,
Too soon.
Always too soon.
One guy that I'm really excited for is Valdon Sohn. Is that how you say his name?
Yeah, Valdon Sohn.
Yeah, because he they were asking Elijah Griffin, who he's seeing out there, and he was talking about Sohn, and that like to be on the lookout for him for a breakout performance this year, and that's pretty high praise.
They said he's getting some buzz, kind of how Elijah Griffin was last year, just getting into camp, and it would be a great luxury to pair him up, because God, we loved it when we had Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter together, man. And we had Devontae Wyatt too. People forget that. I mean, we had 3 first rounders up there at the front on that 2021 team. And man, what a luxury that would be. Valdon Sohn's an interesting guy, right? He's from Europe, right? And Rusty Mansell was actually telling this story about it, that when he was getting recruited, Rusty Mansell was talking to the Nebraska guys, the Nebraska beat reporters, and Nebraska actually sent people over to Switzerland when he was living in Switzerland to visit him.
Wow.
And he kind of joked that Nebraska was never really in it. It was Georgia and Ohio State, but it was just interesting. They sent people across the country to come, or across the world, to try to get this kid. So early returns sound good for him there.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, any news on our defensive line, I'm gonna be pretty excited for.
Yep. Uh, Another person that you keep hearing talked about all the time is Isaiah Canyon. Unfortunately, it sounds like he's got a little bit of an injury right now. So he picked up an ankle sprain the other day. But, this is a guy they're counting on. They're expecting him to come in. They only took one receiver in the portal this year, whereas last year, they took multiple guys. But they really liked him. He had 33 catches last year, 480 yards, 4 touchdowns for Georgia Tech. They knew him in high school. It's a guy that Brooks Austin described as big and smooth. And you got to trust the film guy when he says a guy is big and he moves smoothly. So expecting big things out of him this fall. Hopefully, like I said, we've got a huge void there with Zach Branch gone.
He's big and smooth.
Yeah. And the leading receiver you got coming back is London Humphreys. So there's definitely opportunity there to get in there and get some play. And then one other thing, we talked about this when we were previewing spring practice that there's some news on is the competition at backup center with Drew Bobo out. A lot of people assumed Malachi Tolliver, who got to play at the end of the year, was going to probably be the first guy up. But it seems like Cortez Smith is really making this a competition for that backup center spot, which is good. He actually got the start when Bobo first got hurt, and then he got hurt himself last year, which is why we ended up with Malachi Tolliver. But Cortez Smith is actually getting more of the first team reps. So it's another thing to watch with Bobo out, and potentially they're saying Bobo might not even be back to start the season. He could have played those first 2 games. We got scrub games, so he might not be back until Georgia hits like the SEC schedule. So,
dang, he really jacked himself up.
yeah.
Jeez,
so,
it's rough.
Let's see.
Someone's going to have to step up, and we're definitely going to need it.
Yeah. Let's see. Anything else interesting from Kirby's press conference? Notes from the week. Yeah, I mean, like I said, spring practice is about half over. G-Day's in a couple weeks. If you ain't got your tickets are on sale, $10, general admission. Fortunately, I won't be there, but Burl is going to be our representative and man on the field there.
Man on the scene.
Man on the scene, right? But yeah. So that's what's going on at spring practice right now.
Yeah, good stuff. So they've got a big scrimmage coming up on the 4th, G-Day, like you mentioned. A lot of good stuff.
First scrimmage, like you said, it's the 4th. It's this weekend. I'm sure there'll be lots of reports from all those rich alumni that get to go to special practices, and talk all about it. Not us, but other people will, and we'll help summarize it for you next week. So,
absolutely. All right. Well, if you're still with us or you're watching live, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. If you're enjoying what you're seeing, definitely subscribe. Helps build the channel, gets more viewers. Tell people about it. If you love college football, spread the wealth here. Okay, so you want to talk about some national news, some big things that happened over this past week?
Yeah, first thing real quick we'll hit on, and then we've got 2 stories we kind of want to talk more about. But the proposed rules for penalties for taking blind transfers, after the transfer portal is over. We talked about that. The NCAA has approved the penalties. So it's 6-game suspension for the head coach. It's 20% of your football budget fine. Pretty steep penalties. Now, the immediate response is, well, this ain't going to hold up and in any type of court, and it'll get challenged immediately. But for now, it's on the books. It's been passed as of today.
Kind of a tangent here. I've been thinking about this for a little bit, and it's really I don't understand it. And I'm not saying I'm the smartest guy and I understand all kinds of things. I mean, half the people in our comments probably can attest to that. But you have the NCAA. They're the governing body, right? They make all the rules for all collegiate sports. But for some reason, they get taken to court and they can't enforce their own rules. Make it make sense.
Yeah.
Like what the hell?
I don't know. Yeah. So here's a quote. Clark, Vanderbilt coach, said, Vanderbilt coach Clark. So maybe that's not Clark Lee. Anyway, here's a quote. I am grateful for the D1 cabinet approval of the FBS Oversight Committee's recommendation to impose significant penalties on head coaches and programs who circumvent transfer rules, along with immediate accountability. This is a necessary step to address critical roster management issues facing our sport and to protect the integrity of football's transfer window. But here you got to love this. This was a quote from an anonymous coach who said, it's going to add legal chaos, but it will keep rosters mostly intact until one player wins the lawsuit. Exactly. Because one player is going to win a lawsuit and then it's all out the books.
It's like Thanos. It's inevitable.
It's totally inevitable. So, and another coach said, this is an ACC head coach said, if they actually do it to somebody who violates it, absolutely it'll work. So that coach seems to think that it'll work, but then this is the real kicker. This is an SEC head coach, and I love this. Says there's no way in hell any of this shit holds up. If a kid gets kicked off a team, he can't join another team. Leave it to the SEC to say, yeah, this ain't gonna work.
I mean, it's 100% right. Like I said, the NCAA sets out these rules, but as soon as someone takes them to court, some judge just says, nah, that rule don't make sense.
And I mean, even that specific scenario, it even points it out in this article. Look at Jake Retzlaff last year, right? BYU kicked him out of school.
Yeah.
And then he ended up going to Tulane. But like he kicked him out of school. So what does that situation mean? You know? Like,
yeah, is that a blind transfer?
Right. Is it? Here, an SEC general manager said, legal chaos. None of these rules hold any weight and are hard to enforce without constant audits, which nobody has the manpower to do effectively.
Ain't nobody going to enforce any of this.
I don't.
I mean, just look at the lawyers for the NCAA during the Chambliss trial. They were just like, and they just walked out. They didn't even show up for the verdict because they knew what was happening.
Yeah. So that's a good segue, Burl.
You're welcome.
We will transfer over to Trinidad Chambliss. Newsflash: Trinidad Chambliss is going to be the quarterback at Ole Miss this year.
Indeed.
We can finally definitively say this because, oh wow, the state of Mississippi Supreme Court denied the NCAA request to ban Chambliss from playing this year.
Oh my God.
Surprise.
I can't believe it.
Oh my gosh. Oh my Jesus. Trinidad Chambliss is going to be the quarterback at Ole Miss this year. As somebody said online, thank God, because it's about 2 weeks from the NFL draft. You know, like,
do they still have the supplemental draft? Is that even a thing?
I think so. You know, and the thing is, this case is technically not over. It's probably still going to go to court, but at this point, it's been dragged through so much that if they would ever have any type of Supreme Court ruling, like at the national level, it's going to be after Trinidad Chambliss is gone. It would take that long. So this effectively ends the saga of Trinidad Chambliss. He's back. He's going to be the quarterback there. Let it go, you know?
I feel like if it made it all the way to the United States Supreme Court, someone would just look at it and be like, really?
Is this what we're doing?
Is this what we're doing now?
Yeah, but then Trump would be right. He'd be like, yeah, this is what we're doing. You know?
Yeah.
Trump, I'm right. So anyway, so with that news, I wanted to post something to you, Pearl. Trinidad Chambliss returns to Ole Miss. Ole Miss was a playoff team last year who made it to the Final Four, upset Georgia. Chambliss played like a god last year. So here's my hot take on this situation. Trinidad Chambliss should be the Heisman favorite going into this fall. What do you think?
Ooh, that's a great question. Because a lot of people have Arch, right? Like he's going to be in there. Julian saying he's going to be right up there.
And a lot of these cases, I'm seeing Chambliss is 5th or 6th in the odds. So
that's
behind.
wild. I was really confused, like why he didn't finish higher in the Heisman last year.
Because he wasn't the starter at the beginning of the season. He was a D2 transfer who Simmons was ahead of him. So like people didn't even know who he was. I think that's why. Like even in a case like Fernando Mendoza, he was a fairly high profile transfer. People didn't know he was going to be that great, but he was a fairly high transfer.
Yeah.
Well,
I guess you also have the kid at Oregon, the quarterback coming back, DJ Moore, not Dante DJ Moore, but Dante Moore.
Right.
He's coming back. So
yeah, I mean, like I said, you have a lot of high profile guys that are up for the Heisman. Obviously, Arch Manning, it doesn't get any higher profile than that. You've got Julian Sayin, who damn near broke the NCAA completion percentage record. You got Jeremiah Smith, who's arguably the best player in college football. Lots of the media are in love with CJ Carr at Notre Dame.
You got Mensa down at Miami throwing to Malachi Toney.
Right. But like I said, my hot take is Chambliss should be the favorite. Let me explain to you why. Statistically, last year was fantastic. This is a guy who was not the starter until like the 3rd game of the season. He had almost 4,000 yards passing last year, 22 touchdowns, only 3 interceptions. He also ran for 500 yards and 8 touchdowns. So 30 touchdowns at a guy who wasn't even the starter at the beginning of the year and was a D2 transfer. So it wasn't like he was even expected to even be like the backup. Like he was just a depth guy coming in as a 5th-year senior on the team, right? He was coming in because he had an experience of winning a national championship at a D2 level to bring some experience with Austin Simmons kind of entrenched as a starter. Okay, Chambliss, we know that he can make the type of plays that's going to get him on SportsCenter because we saw it. And that Sugar Bowl game against Georgia, they don't win that game without him. You know, he made those plays. Georgia's pass rush got no sacks, but it wasn't like in the first game where they weren't getting pressure. They were getting pressure.
The one thing I think that he has going for him, in addition to just his talent, is Kewan Lacey's coming back. So it's not just him. Right. And like I said about Gunner earlier, you know, Gunner can have the same type of season, but if there's not that other person that steps up that can carry the load, it's going to be difficult. And I'm not really sure what Ole Miss has at receiver and tight end after last year. That'll be a big question mark. And Pete Golding going into a full season as a head coach, but
without Lane there, right?
But by all accounts, I mean, the team seems to be responding better with Golding as the head coach.
Right, but the assistants came back and helped for that stretch.
So that's the other thing. They're not going to have the same offensive coordinator because he's going to Charlie Weiss Jr.
Charlie Weiss and Joe Cox left. They went with Lane. So, and, you know, you mentioned Kewan Lacey. So Chambliss has got a running back to support him. Manning and Sayin have 2 of the highest profile receivers in the country. But sometimes having a great receiver, I think, can take a little bit of luster off the ability of a passer to shine. Because if you have this amazing receiver, what is that going to do? Split votes. Votes. Because if you have a receiver who has crazy numbers, who's
becomes
making
the
plays
independent candidate.
Right. Because let's think about it this way. 2020, yes, messed up year, COVID year, whatever. Devontae Smith wins the Heisman that year.
First receiver ever.
Well, somewhat. Woodson, half and half. But he wins the Heisman. But he won the Heisman because Waddle got hurt in the second half of the year. But Mac Jones put up insane numbers. Alabama won the national championship. But Devontae Smith won the Heisman because he was making those fantastic plays, right? And when Waddle went down, it was all on him. So I think these teams that have these great receivers could take a little shine off the quarterback. Now it's going to be hard. Manning, I mean, it's going to be hard. Manning's going to have to play worse than he did last year, I think, because he actually played really well.
I mean,
but they had no running game, so
it's really got to be Dante Moore, Manning. I would like from a pure talent perspective, I think Trinidad Chambliss is right there, probably the best of them, like from what we saw last year. But the Heisman is more than just the singular player. Like it's the best player on the best team.
right.
That's really what it comes down to.
But who
So
are the
is
two
Ole
best
Miss going to be there at the end?
I don't know.
I don't think
but
so.
But who were the two best players in the country last year offensively? Who were the best two? To me, it was Jeremiah Smith and Jeremiah Love.
Yeah.
And neither of them won the Heisman. Now Jeremiah Smith is back, and I still think he's the most talented player. But if it's not Chambliss, I still think Chambliss should be the favorite. I just think it's tough. But if it's not Chambliss and it's not Arch Manning, I really think the guy to watch for is CJ Carr, because Notre Dame's schedule is not that hard, and because people are enamored with his skill set. People talk so great about him, and yes, he's good, but man, like first year starter, they talk a lot about him. So that's just one to watch because it's the Notre Dame.
Another hot take. I mean, Bryce Underwood could be a sleeper candidate.
He's going to have to improve a lot, though. I mean, the skills are there.
That's what I'm saying. His sleeper candidate got a completely different head coach. I mean,
yeah,
presumably one that won't have all kinds of scandals that the rest of Michigan coaches do.
It's Michigan, man. They live for the scandal.
Pure Michigan, baby.
Well, anyway, so leave us in the comments. What do you think? Do you think that Trinidad Chambliss should be the Heisman favorite, or who is your Heisman favorite? Let us know, and maybe we'll talk about it next week.
Yep. And we've been talking for quite a while. So I think that's going to do it for us this week, unless you have anything you want to touch on.
No, I mean, we could talk about Dabo, but we could do that next week.
Yeah. All right. Well, that will do it for us this week. This is the Nitro College Football Show. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. We really appreciate the support. And until next time, I'm Burl.
And I'm Street.
Go Dogs.
Go Dogs.